Today's guest is Adoh Doherty. He is a professional triathlete, and I got introduced to him through my co-host and good friend of mine, Paul Zigowitz. The two of them actually met at the starting line of a half Ironman. It was one of Adoh's first races, if not his very first, I think. Adoh is an incredible athlete and jumped onto the scene and immediately was having some big victories. So we talked about a couple of his big wins that he was coming off of. We talk about his training, how he approaches building like his blocks of training leading up to a big race. And not only that, but we discuss the recovery components as well as the nutrition components, which in triathlon is such a significant part of what they do. He also talks a lot about his relationship with God and what led him to be so close with God and, God's impact on his life. So I thought that was really insightful as well. They're actually training. He's training with another guest that you'll see later in the season, Mark Dubrick, and they're training up in New Hampshire at a training facility with a little team that they got going. So definitely keep an eye on them. They're all doing some pretty amazing things. And I hope you enjoy this episode. Without further ado, please enjoy Adoh's story. You're out in New Hampshire, right? Bedford, New Hampshire?
Yes, until November. Then I'm going to head down to Claremont, Florida.
Very cool. Yeah, you kind of get away from the winter in New England. That's smart.
Yeah, we don't have it. We actually have it really good. We don't have to deal with much of the cold weather, the snow, because as you know, cycling and running in the cold is just not ideal for training,
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a nice thing lifestyle wise too. I mean, my girlfriend and I, we try to get like a long weekend in Florida, but you guys got the whole 3 or 4 months down there. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's a pretty good setup.
And I was looking, I didn't realize this either, but you're actually originally from Taunton, Mass?
I am. Yes, Taunton, Massachusetts. Yes, sir.
Very cool. So I grew up, and so did Paul. I don't know if you guys talked about that, but in Mattapoisett, so not too far.
Right. Yeah, that's actually, I know where Mattapoisett is. That's not too far at all.
Yeah. So
local boys.
Absolutely.
I'm the only one that's from New England originally that's on my team. Go figure. I basically came close, basically back to home, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, back home basically to join this team. So it's pretty nice.
That's very cool. So you guys have a whole center over there, a whole like triathlon.
Yes.
Center.
Yes. So we call it, or our coach calls it the DTE, the daily training environment. And we have 6 guys and 1 or 2 girls that are full time. And basically we travel, we train, we live, eat, sleep, train together full time. We're all away from our families, but this is my family now. But yeah, we in Bedford, we got a nice pool facility. We have incredible cycling spots. We got access to the mountains if we need it, and the running is second to none.
So how are you feeling just coming off that race? How'd that victory feel?
Oh man, it was surreal. It was nice. That's what we went down there for. We knew it was going to be competitive. We knew it was going to be hence the name, a really tough course. It's not a course that'd be tailored towards something that I would do, that being both a long course and 4,400 feet of elevation on the bike. And I think it was 1,400 of elevation on the run. So not a typical course that is suitable towards my strengths, but it was nice to get down there and be able to crack out a really solid effort and come out with that win.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. The elevation gain in a place like that. What I'm interested to hear, if you're willing to dive in a little bit to your training block leading up to it, if you were doing specifically a lot of strength stuff for the elevation or doing a lot of, hill runs, that type of stuff.
Right. So, I can get into a bit of that. And my coaches, he has a big philosophy on the fact that it's not hill train, like hill specific training. It's more strength specific training. So it's not like we're just if we're anticipating a course that's going to be incredibly hilly, it's not like, okay, let's go slam a bunch of hills 2 weeks prior to a 4,400 feet of climbing race. No, it's more along the lines of, let's get that strength. Let's have that base of strength, because ultimately the strongest man is going to be able to cover the course the fastest on that day. So I think it was 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks out, we did a 70-minute time trial up the Kangamankas Highway in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. So that was kind of like, I guess, a mental prep. The segment is, I want to say it was like it was mid 20 miles ish. And of course, in a half, it's just 56. But it's nice to be able to tap into that and get that long, slow grind, because that was only 3-4%. But you know, as you fatigue, you begin to feel that every little extra percent, you know. So that's how we kind of tailored it, not too close to the race, because we wanted enough time to respond to it and all that. So yeah, it was like 2.5 weeks out. We did a really solid long effort on 3 or 4%.
That's great. Yeah, you mentioned it a little bit, but the mental side of it, for just the confidence of having done something similar, that must be huge going in. Like, hey, I've been here before. My body knows what this is going to take to endure this pain. So
right.
Nice.
Right. It's running off hills is a completely different beast though. Like when you do that, you know, it's like when you get off the bike, it's like we need the legs to be cooperating, because the hills do take a little bit of a different hit on it as to a flat course. So
that makes sense. Yeah. Could you talk about how you felt kind of at each stage, going from, you know, maybe the transitions, how you're feeling getting out of the water and then getting off the bike? You know, if you were feeling great, or what your body was feeling like?
For sure. So as you may not know, but I'm a run background. I ran track and cross country at Oklahoma. So the run is kind of my safe spot, my happy place, if you will. Right. And that's fortunately that's last. I don't say I have a weak area, but my not so strong area is the swim. So I was 2.5 minutes out on the water. Our second guy out of the water. There was the elite wave, and I was with that wave, and the first man that came out was 2.5 ahead, and I came after the bike. The lead basically remained the same. Our splits were very, very similar. So he had a little over 2.5 minutes out of T2 going into the run, and that's when I said, I need to compensate. I have a lot of work to do, because I honestly, man, I was feeling it. I was hurting on the hills. I was sitting in third on the bike, and I'll be candid, as we were climbing, I was getting dropped, but my strength is the flats. So on the flats, I would get back into that of legal draft zone and try to basically save as much as I can for my true strength of the run. So I got off the bike in second, third, same time. We dismounted together, second and third. And the guy in transition said it was either 220 or 240 back out of first. So I saw him at the first mile marker as I was just exiting the parking lot. So he probably had 3/4 of a mile. And I was like, okay, now I got 12 miles to get in the work.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I did. I was looking at your splits on the Ironman like tracker that they have, and I was just looking at the run splits. I'm like, this guy is absolutely cruising. So I definitely, as I did my research, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's a runner by trade for sure.
Yeah, it was so hilly too. So like, I really like to think there's some more untapped potential in that run. I mean, significantly, but I feel as though there's a lot more potential there for the splits that I really want for that those really elite races, you know.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a cool topic to maybe get into a little bit, is untapped potential, because I feel like naturally in your career, that's been a common theme, the way you have evolved from, you know, again, you can get into it a little bit more, but from what I was reading, you started out doing a lot of track and field events, and then through, various things that happened, you kind of evolved and adapted to the triathlon distances, and that's really where you're looking to make your mark in the Olympic setting.
Correct. So yeah, that's like one of my favorite topics, is the whole untapped potential, because it's the blessing that some people might see something as a curse, but it's a blessing that, you take what you have, and if it didn't end up working out, God's always going to open that second door for you. So, or third or fourth, whatever it may be, however many doors you've kicked through by now. But yes, that whole topic is, I was always a runner. All right. So my father was a runner. He was All-American. He was an incredible athlete. So I always grew up running, and we always knew that the Olympics was always going to be the goal. My dad hung the Olympic rings over my bed. He said, this will be the first thing you see when you wake up, the last thing you see before you go to bed. He said, if you truly want to do it, I'm going to give to you what I never had. And that's the opportunity, because he had all this. Talk about untapped potential. My father was the definition of untapped potential. And he was at the top of his game when he was just a teenager. So we always kind of had this thing going, interesting relationship, father, son, coach, son. It was coach athlete. It was very, very bizarre growing up, but it always was running. But I just, like many triathletes that come from run background, was injury. I went through them all. Don't know how much detail you want me to get into, but the most pivotal one was my back. I broke my back in 2 places. And that was a defining moment in my life, in, of course, my athletic career. But that got me in the pool, that got me on the bike. And this happened at such a young age that I still always went back to my roots of running. I always knew I have to be an Olympian on the track. And then it ended up just transitioning into, I have to become an Olympian. And then what ended up becoming cross training and weaknesses, cycling and swimming, ended up becoming routine and strength. And they ended up translating really nicely into my running as well. So, but yeah, untapped potential is just basically everything. I ran 4:28 in the mile as a freshman in high school. I was supposed to be a sub 4-minute miler in high school. And then I broke my back. I never was an All-American in college, ever. And I never made it to the national meet in college. And I think that is the definition of untapped potential, where you have this raw talent at a young age. And I always was left hungry. And I don't want to make excuses and say, I never had more than 14 months of consistent training, actually 11 months of consistent training without a significant injury. That is a true statement, but that's just, I never reached where I truly knew I was capable of getting.
Yeah. Well, that must make, you touched on it a bit, but that must make, right now you go even harder when you have those moments that you look back on. Like, it keeps you hungry, like you said, keeps you motivated and inspired to chase those goals. I thought that was an interesting point about getting into those lower impact type of activities, swimming, biking, or, even cross training, body weight, stuff like that. Because, then you're still able to build that cardio base. You don't necessarily lose all of your fitness, and then you're incorporating it into that. That's really interesting. From a mental standpoint, I also was intrigued to hear about, you mentioned your dad saying this would be something you think about when you wake up and then before you go to bed. And I'm big on visualization and intention setting. So I was wondering if you practice any of that or incorporate that into what you're doing.
Absolutely. And this is so important in sport, whether it's whatever level of sport it is. It's the visualization and overcoming the mental is that's the 99%, really. Because at the level that we're at, 99% of the training is all the same. A lot of that stuff's the same. It's up here that's going to make the difference between succeeding and not. But yeah, in training, honestly, I always do this, I don't know if it's visualization, but it's like I kind of speak it out as I go. I pretend there's someone there, or I pretend there's someone there behind me, in front of me. There's always this mental pushing, but there's something to say about, like, if you're training solo, that is mentally, like, they call it mentally grueling to train solo, but like seclusion almost leads to success, in the sense that if you can do it yourself, you'll be able to do it in competition on race day with someone pushing and pulling. But I really like to envision, and I made a joke with, I just talked about this recently, but this past weekend, I said the guy that got off the bike in front of me, I pretended that Christian Blumenfeld was in front of him. And so I just said, I need to get to him so I can get to the best in the world. I need to get to him. Right. And then it's just, I'm visualizing getting closer and closer. Then I make up these fake scenarios in my head that there's a world class or the best in the world right there, and I am capable of getting there. So I guess if you think that is visualization, then I do practice that.
Absolutely. No, that makes total sense. And I was going to ask you if you kind of create these scenarios that aren't necessarily there, which you just alluded to. It's funny. I don't know if you've seen the Last Dance documentary with MJ, but
I have not seen that. No.
Oh, I think you'd love it. But he talks about how he would make up these stories when he'd go to play against someone, someone that was guarding him, like another shooting guard. He'd be like, this person said something about my family. They disrespected me. They said that I had no 3-point game. So then I went out and I hit like 5 or 6 threes or blah, blah, blah. But he had all these things, and they would interview people that he was playing against. Like, I never said that. And he was coming at me like and he was like, I did what I needed to do to get up for that game. So he would kind of create these narratives that he knew would fuel him. So I immediately thought of that when you were talking about that. It's mental is definitely a big part of it.
Definitely.
So you just finished that race, obviously. What's kind of next on the horizon that you're preparing for?
So this is a question that's floating around a lot with me and my coach, and we're kind of in this limbo-esque area, in the sense that it says, because I've been doing triathlon for, I think it's 15 months now, 14 or 15 months. So I'm still fairly new to this. I'm still green, if you will, but we want to take the elite license. We don't have that exact date yet. We've had this in the back pocket for a while, and we've had time to think about it. So now we're trying to line up a schedule into, okay, when do we want to make this elite debut? When do we want to do draft legal? Do we want to do a long course? Where do we want to drop this debut, if you will? So I think we've concluded and decided that we're going to start the pro journey, if you will, the elite journey towards the Olympics in February or March, down to those races in Florida. So we're going to finish out this year. The only race as of now on the calendar is Haines City in December. I might do one more draft legal just for a little tune up in November or October. But right now it's just riding out the rest of the year. One draft legal potentially, Haines City in December, and then focus on all those draft legals in early year 2022.
Great. Yeah, for listeners, and for myself, candidly, what are the big differences in that draft legal? Obviously, you don't have the distances that you have to, wait behind people, and you probably have more speed and can get in your packs, especially with the bike. But I'm just interested to hear about like the dynamics of those different types of races.
Yeah, so like the ITU world is just a different beast. It falls under this umbrella of triathlon, where there's long course, short course, draft legal, non-draft. But draft legal is just like, it's like its own entity, it's just like its own thing, in the sense that the fields will be about 75 people, wave stat, and it's just carnage, man. It's red line for a sprint or an Olympic triathlon. So it's an hour or 2 hours, give or take, where it's just full red line. You're basically all gas for your respective distance, but it's the swim is what sets you up for the race, basically. So there are these things called draft packs, in the sense that you literally can be in a cycling group of a group of cyclists and do very little work if you have a good swim, and you can just suck the wheel of the person in front of you, and that's you call that draft pack. So that swim is essential, that you make the group and then you move with the group. And then you're basically getting off your bike in a group of 6, 8, 4 guys. And it's just, all right, now all of our legs are cooked and now we need to get onto the run.
Yeah. Well, that probably serves your style of racing well, right? Because then you take off on the run, say, see you later. Ideally.
It's tough though. It's tough though, because I've missed so many groups in my very short draft legal experience. I have missed so many groups because I've had a weak swim. And if I stand any chance of making that first cycling pack, I need to have a more than perfect swim.
Gotcha.
So I've always had that deficiency of like that deficit. I mean, and I need to make that up. And so I need to make up that, whether I have to work up one group or 2 groups, just so hard to do as a solo cyclist.
Right.
And then by then that's more work in the legs, and then your run begins to slowly get affected every time you need to make that extra surge to get to the next group,
Right. That makes sense. Well, that sounds like that'll be interesting. I'm interested to kind of follow along with those draft legal races, see how those go. In preparation, what other stuff are you doing for training? Are you doing obviously swim, bike, and run? Are you doing any weight work, anything like that in the gym?
Yeah, good question. So not as much. No, I don't pick up a weight. The viewers can't see me, but I'm just a bigger guy in general. I just have a bigger build. I want to kind of lean out a little bit more. I'm not big by any means, but like I'm a little bigger for triathlon. I carry a little bit extra weight, if you will, and that weight turns to strength, and that strength is power. So that's my specialty, is the power side of things, just muscling through the swim, the bike, and the run. But no, I don't touch any weights. I do a lot of body weight stuff, a lot of like thoracic spine mobility. I do hip mobility, hip strengthening, band work, core strengthening, but never will I touch a weight.
Gotcha. Yeah, band work is great. I feel like during the lockdown and all of that, I definitely found myself getting more into the body weight and calisthenics, and I mean, it's amazing because it still is low impact, so you're not feeling super sore the next day, and you can hit another solid workout for days and days in a row.
Right.
Are you pretty much, obviously it's full time, so I'm assuming it's pretty much every day for you. How many hours are you doing kind of per week, per month? What's your training look like?
Yeah, so our training is on a week-to-week basis, and I'll go 22 to 26 hours of quantity a week, and that's swimming, biking, and running, not counting the strength. So that at least 20 hours a week of quantifiable, but we'll never touch more than 26.
Yeah, so like 3 hours a day kind of thing. That's
So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 sessions, 3 sessions a day. Obviously the bike, the swim, and the run. Tuesday, Thursday, very discipline specific work. So we'll only have 2 sessions of the day. Tuesday will be an intense swim and a really intense run. Thursday will be a really intense bike and a kind of focused-esque swim. And then Saturday will be long run, Sunday long ride, paired with a swim.
Very nice. And then with all that, all that volume, what are you doing for recovery? Do you do the sauna? Like, are you doing ice, everything? All of the above?
Man, honestly, everything. And I try so much different stuff. Some of my teammates lean more towards like the sauna type stuff. I personally don't. I'll do it maybe once every other week, once a month, maybe. But no, my thing is we hit the Normatec boots. I do. So with my history of my back injury, I always have to be very, very, very intentional with my recovery towards my back. So I have these tools that that can get into each vertebrae that I can lay on, and I can focus, like if it's like the lats that day, or if it's like the lumbar of my spine, or if it's a thoracic of my spine, I can lay on these different tools. I can do different stretches there. But we got boots, so right. We're rolling. I do Epsom salt baths instead of ice baths. I'm a baby in the cold, so I prefer heat over cold.
Yeah.
We do what else? Basically, I think we touched upon a lot of them, but yeah, Epsom salt is incredible, like so underrated. I just kind of recently developed this late into my college career, that Epsom salt is great, especially for turnarounds. If you got 2 races in a weekend, Epsom salt's great for that night after your first race. You can just pop right up if you have to do a prelim final, or if you have a super sprint and a sprint double, or a sprint Olympic double, that it's nice to get that quick, hang your legs or get in the recovery boots and then do the Epsom salt bath.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people have talked about Epsom salt, and I use it occasionally. I have some big, massive bag of it. I'm just starting to learn like the science behind all the stuff. Something with like the magnesium absorption, I believe, and I know magnesium's obviously big for runners, iron, magnesium, that kind of stuff, because with high endurance, you're depleting a lot of that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, recovery just in general is an interesting topic that I'm always fascinated with, because, you know, like you said, the difference is in what you're doing. You have elite level folks doing pretty much similar types of workout, high volume, but then it's like, how do you make those incremental differences? So you got to assume recovery is a bit, if you're not taking care of yourself while you're not training, that's going to hurt you in the long run.
Right. I had a coach that told me once, he said, it's the 1%ers. And you think about that and you're like, really, what does that really mean? It's the 1%ers. But, and I know I said 99% is like the same, but if we take baseline at this level, 80% of what we do is training, you know? So where can we fight for the extra 1%? And this is where he got this term 1%ers from. Let's say 1% is outside of training. 1% is sleep. 1% is diet. 1% is recovery of the lower body. 1% is recovery of the upper body. 2%, 5%, 3%, 10% is how do you prepare your brain. 1% is, you can go on and on and on. And it's You start adding up these 1%ers. And now we're talking, I can toe the line for someone that's 80%, and I'm towing the line at 102%. I did all these extra 1%ers to add up, and you know, because you need anything for that little bit of an edge. In long course, especially, 1% is going to make a difference. But in short course, that's 1%. Right, it just compounds on top of each other. It's just 1% missing that bike group. 1% is a win or a loss, you know.
Yeah, it's reminding me of the it's so true. It's reminding me of that Every Given Sunday like motivation speech where he's talking about the inches in football, and he's like, no, an inch is the difference between, you know, going home a winner or loser type of thing. But that's like the most cliche motivation speech we used to play before all the sports in high school. But it's kind of funny.
Hey, it works though, and there's some truth behind it.
Right. No, absolutely. And it seems, you know, they seem in isolation, like if you're talking to someone who may not be as knowledgeable or be doing the same types of things that or have the similar goals that you are, they may seem like, well, getting to sleep at this time, or, you know, not drinking alcohol or whatever it is, like these little types of things are like, well, that can't make that much difference. It actually does. And especially when you add them all up together, like you're talking about. So
true.
Yeah. I'm just thinking also about your dad and your relationship with him. You talked about it earlier, that he ran. Was he a hurdler? Is that the event that he did?
He was. He ran hurdles at UMass. He was a short sprinter. He did the 120-yard hurdles, 440 hurdles. Very anaerobic, very explosive, fast twitch. The opposite of what I do, but but really not so much. Elite athletics is elite athletics, whether it's basketball, softball, whatever. It's very, very similar. But yeah, he was a sprinter on the track.
Awesome. So does he still obviously have a hand in what you're doing today when you're planning and stuff like that, putting together your schedule?
Yeah, he's highly involved. So he's actually my manager now. So he does that for me. He takes care of all the sponsorship stuff, schedule training, and all of that is in the responsibility of my coach. And he'll always concede to my coach's opinion. That's my coach is arguably the best coach in the world, in my opinion. And he knows his role in the sense of like manager when it comes to sponsorships and dollars and cents types things, but he is completely still involved, and by far one of the most supportive people I've ever had in my life.
That's great. That's so important when you're working on such big goals, and there's over the course of a long period of time to have that support system, because there's got to be, road bumps. You're talking about injuries, and even just, I'm sure there's mental defeats. So it's important to, have folks that are there that understand you truly, and can kind of like adapt as you do. I'm also interested to hear, obviously I see the hoodie. I love it. I'm interested to hear about faith and that being a big component of your life.
Yeah, that's actually the biggest component of my life. It's not even a component of my life. It is my life. It is my identity. I mean, we could have an hour show, a 100-hour show on my faith alone, but really my identity is in Christ, and he gives me the strength, the ability, the skill, the passion. He instilled this dream in me when I was 11-year-old Adoh. He instilled this Olympic dream in me because he wanted me to walk through what I had to walk through, the injuries, the academic opportunity to go to college. I wouldn't have gone to college had I not had this God-given gift. He's everything, and I didn't even know how good he was until it was hindsight's 2020. I never was a religious man. I never knew God until August 10th, 2018. So I went 23 years of my life godless, faithless, and all of that. And then I gave my life to Christ on August 10th, 2018, and my life has changed. My perspective has completely changed. And it really just that trajectory of my dream has changed. The dream has always been the same, and I was never there for him. And it's just incredible. But man, God is number one in my life, before sport, before family, before everything. He created me. So who knows better than the creator himself?
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna have to ask what happened on August 10th. I mean,
yeah, Trush. I guess I set myself up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable talking about it.
No, oh man, I absolutely. This is the number one passion of my life. Yeah. I'm absolutely comfortable talking about it. So that was the first time I ever prayed in my life. So I never had that interaction with God ever. So I was training in Colorado Springs. I had a broken heel at the time. I was training at altitude. I was supposed to do this running camp for training and all this altitude stuff and mountain work and blood testing, all this crazy intense. And I ended up getting stuck in a pool, and I couldn't run. I barely even ran. I think I ran like 40 miles in 4 months when I was out there. And I ended up getting stuck in a pool, but I digress, sorry. But I came across, or God placed a missionary in my life. I didn't even know he was a missionary really until after all this. But he said, Adoh, have you ever prayed? Long story short, he said, have you ever prayed? And I said, it's maybe here. No, not really. And he said, let's just try. And first time I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of embarrassed. So he's like, let's just try. And so nothing, I didn't know what was going to happen, but nothing did happen. And then he said, no. And then we ended up going outside and we ended up focusing. And he said, just talk to him like you're talking to me. So I closed my eyes and I said, God, if you're a God, if there's a God, I'm not a believer at this time. So I said, I don't know. And then I said, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I have the audacity to say, I'm just a human, man. I have the audacity to say, God, if you're real, you'll prove it to me at this very second. Like, who am I? Who do
Yeah.
I like think I am to question the creator of the heaven and the earth, bro? Like, and at that very moment, I started bawling my eyes out, and both my legs gave out, started shaking, and I was trembling. And it was the most unearthly experience I've ever had in my life. And that was, God didn't have to do this, but I opened myself up, and I became vulnerable for the first time in my life. I was a very different human being back then. I was vulnerable for the first time. I opened myself up, and not that he had to do it, but he said, Adoh, you're mine.
Wow.
And so I'm not kidding when I say this, 180-degree turn on that day. And I became a complete new creation. And that's without reading a Bible, without stepping foot into a church, without any of that, truly saved by grace alone. So
Wow.
when I look back at that story, I noticed all these people that he sent to me to say, invite me to church that I rejected, offer to pray for me that I've rejected, and all these people that he sent to me that I just rejected and denied. Mm-hmm. And then it just took this one special opportunity, this specific vulnerable experience in my life, and this feeling of openness, and yeah, it was just absolutely incredible. And it was just, the only word you can use for it is divine, man.
Yeah, I got chills as you were saying. That was pretty intense. That is amazing.
Praise
God. Powerful story.
Praise God.
Wow. Need to take a second to fully absorb that.
Yeah, no, it's tough, man. It's just like, you can't, and we'll never be able to scratch the surface of the greatness of our God. Like he knows how many hairs are on our head. He knows every cell in our body. He knows every, like, and it's unfathomable. So I completely understand, but it's just like, our identity is not in sport. Our identity is not, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer. For me personally, my identity is that I'm a child of God. I'm a servant of the Almighty God. And he blessed me with this platform. He blessed me with this gift, and he gave me this dream and this purpose. So I'm going to glorify him with what he gave me.
Absolutely. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So moments like that, both, I guess on both ends of the spectrum, or I guess it's all kind of all a part of the same journey, the beautiful journey that we're on. But those moments specifically definitely have to develop some sort of grit and heart that may not have been there before, right? So a moment like that, it's got to even come into play when you're training and racing. Is like, do you have moments when you're out there where you think of those type of moments? Think back to August 10th, and you're like, yeah, I really could stop right now. I could kind of ease off the gas, but we're gonna keep pushing.
You hit the nail on the head, man. You really did that. And I think about it nearly every day, and nearly every intense training session. And the only reason I'm able to get through the races that I'm able to is because when I finally hit that wall, when my legs are failing, I can call upon a God who can get me to the finish line. If it's first, second, third, fourth, it doesn't matter. It's right. I gave everything, because, and just like yesterday, I was hitting a wall, and I said, God, this is not me, but you. So if you choose your will, not mine, if you choose to get me there, I'll glorify you through that finish line. I'll do the best that I can. So absolutely every day, every training session. Oh man, you can't take it for granted, really. And sometimes some days I might, every day, every breath, it could be gone like that. So you got to think about this, man. And life is this, right? Eternity is this. Life is one grain of sand on a beach. Eternity is the beach. Like, so we'll get so caught up in our day to day, and it's just like, man, eternity. We're talking forever. Like, we can't live for today or tomorrow or the one day. It's actually, we got to think towards eternity, and it's crazy. Absolutely. But that's you open this door, man.
No, I know it's interesting, because I actually had this conversation 2 days ago about the afterlife and things of that nature. So talking about eternity, it's like, it's right up the alley of things I've been thinking about, which is somewhat strange in that I hadn't in a long time. So this is almost a serendipitous moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
This
glad we
is
got.
divine, man.
It is
You say
seriously.
serendipity, I say divine, man.
Ab-
It's God ordained, brother.
Absolutely. And it's funny as you or I find myself as I get older, I went to a Catholic school in high school. I grew up, being raised Catholic and, First Communion, all that. And
Yeah.
I would say, morally, I've always instilled those values almost naturally just because that's what I was taught. But I guess I never, until the past couple of years, never really intentionally thought about them or thought about the bigger picture of why they're important. It was almost just like going through the motions and okay,
Right.
now I do confirmation. Yeah, I don't commit venial sins and I do what's right. I try to do what's right the majority of the time.
Right.
But then when you actually dive in and you start to see like the impacts in the day-to-day life, it's definitely remarkable. It's an amazing thing. So absolutely. Praise God.
I mean, you recognize it though. That's such a beautiful thing. It's like you actually recognize that it's there's a difference between having that intentionality and like having being aware of that and then not having that. So like absolutely like recognizing and being in the state of recognition is just like that's a huge step. So that's awesome.
Right. Just being almost, yeah, intentional, like meaningful in how you whether you say like praise him or how you just conduct yourself. For me, that's how I feel like, okay, am I conducting myself in a way that's aligned with these beliefs? So
Right.
yeah, it's just being kind of having that presence of mind to think about it more often. So I'm
Right.
glad we're getting the chance to talk because it's definitely making me think even more about it.
Wow, that's
Uh,
awesome, man. That's really
yeah.
great.
So I'm interested to hear about so you got into triathlon, say a year and a half ago type of thing.
Mhm.
Do you have a specific, I'll say like favorite race or most difficult race or a race that stands out that was like, this is a pinnacle of, what you've done so far?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. And every race is just like an incredible learning experience, especially when you're so new. And I think I've only done, I think I've done less than 10 triathlons.
Yep.
But there was this one race that was just such an eye opener. And it was down in Tuscaloosa. It was in Alabama. It was day 2 duathlon national championships, not triathlon, but multi-sport, very, very similar. So I, building up to this race, there was so much that was going wrong. Like there was little things, not like injuries or any of that, but there's just like, oh man, I busted my chain. I don't have the right cassette,
Yep.
X, Y, and Z. Like, oh, my was in my Airbnb was doing this, so I couldn't sleep. Oh, whatever I usually eat for dinner, I couldn't eat that. So all these things that you could use as excuses, all these things that you could make as like scapegoats as to why you didn't win.
Right.
That all hit me, and that's what opened this door for this race. And
Uh,
this race taught me that literally no one cares. The results don't care about your feelings. Nobody cares about, oh, my flight got delayed. Okay,
yeah.
they lost my bag, so I had to sleep at the airport that night, and then I had to show up to the course that day. There's no asterisk next to your
Right.
time at the finish line.
Like, oh,
Oh, Adoh got
give him 10 minutes back. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Adoh got second that day because his Airbnb neighbor, or he missed his flight, or he wasn't able to get the Chipotle that he always has night before his race. Like I had this realization, and it was just like it hit me it was just like the last couple miles of the bike when I was in third, and I'm down. I just flew all the way to Tuscaloosa. I flew all the way there. I got my bikes. I took third or second. I took third the day before, and I was so disappointed. And then I was laying down, and I was like, oh well, X, Y, and Z didn't go my way. I didn't have this. And then I'm like, Adoh, who are you? Like, why are you making like? No,
Yeah.
don't quit making these excuses. So
Right.
day 2, I went in completely different, and And then the result was what I went there for, Bradley. So like that race taught me so much about racing. Like I know I train hard, I put in the work necessary, but there's a different gear you need to find to race. When you get in that race environment, it's either you get it done or you don't get it done. So that was that pinnacle moment of like, all right, Adoh learned how to race multisport. Adoh learned how to race, and I kind of look back and I get a little disappointed in myself in some of my college races that, did I have that? Did I have that extra gear? And I don't want to sound like I didn't try in college. I've always gave it 100%, but I just have this different outlook towards it now. And it's just, I know there's more. And if and only deep down inside do you yourself know if it was deserved or earned that day. But that was the day that I realized I think I can make it to the top of triathlon with a mentality like this.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm fascinated by that race day and in general, performance day in whatever sport, that different gear that you get to. I always thought about when I was younger, why, the vast majority of touchdowns come with 1 minute left, or, the most incredible shots happen with 5 seconds on the clock, 3 seconds on the clock.
Right.
And I always used to think about that. So they're capable of that. But when it hits that different level, that different gear, as you said, it's like, it's make or break, right? It's like some people are going to show up and then some people, get left behind or whatever it is. But I think that's such an interesting concept. And I'm actually personally looking at it because so for myself, through doing these interviews and just kind of getting into fitness again a little bit more the past year or so, I actually signed up for a half marathon, my first race ever. So
yes,
next weekend. Pretty pumped. And I mean, main goal, I have like a number in my head, but it's also just to like go have some fun, and make sure I cross the finish line. But I was talking with some people that I've trained with and done runs with before, like long runs, or for me long, 10, 11 miles. And I was telling them kind of what I was looking to do. And they're like, when the gun goes off, like you're going to surprise yourself. You're going to do something way more than the number that I'm shooting for. But so I was like, oh, there's no way. This is what I've been doing. And they're like, trust me, you're the type of person, like once you're out there with thousands of other people and the energy's high, like your number's going to be far low. So when you said that, like the race day gear is different, I'm interested to see that.
Yeah, when you do toe the line and there's the announcers and the guns and the people and the fans, you're going to have this feeling like, I need to step up. I need to perform to this. And it's just a matter, like, of course we all have these races, and hopefully this isn't your first experience in a race. This isn't your experience, but we all have these races where it's like the gun goes off and it's just like 100%, like 150 miles an hour, you're just, and we all have that. It's that's that like nut up or shut up type mentality, but it's like, okay, we got 13 miles.
Dial it in still, right.
So, but no, that's that feeling. You're going to have that. You're going to feel obligated to perform to your environment.
Right. Yeah. And I'm talking, not to, I don't want to make this about me at all, but talking to some
no, please. Yeah.
They were saying similar things of like, whatever your pace is that you are shooting for, those first couple miles, like it's going to feel like you're absolutely like almost walking, like you're jogging, and you're like, I can push more. So my whole thing is kind of like getting to, at least my strategy going in right now is kind of getting to the halfway point, kind of gearing like at that race pace, and seeing how I feel, and then just, who knows, it could be that at mile 3 I see something that makes me want to just bolt or whatever it is, but I'm just along for the experience. I'm excited for it. So
you're gonna feel it out, man. But it's like, and of course it's a key word that I was always told in races on the track, especially when it's congested and stuff, is patience and assess. Always, patience doesn't necessarily win a race, but patience can get you in that in the spot to win a race.
Right.
Whereas if you're always, you can always be assessing as the race goes as well, where once you get to mile 6 and you're like, wow, my friends were right, this does feel like walking, then it's like, okay, check that box, I assess it, I have X amount of miles to go, and now we can
Turn it
stop
up a little
bit.
Yeah.
Right.
You get to 10 and you're like, all right, well, I know I can suffer for 3 pretty hard.
Right.
So yeah, that's what
it's true.
I've tried to put myself, again, not really with the background in running at all, but always played sports and always been big, like go to the gym type of person. So I've always had like a cardio, like aerobic base to an extent, but never really done anything with it. But yeah, I feel I just wanted to work towards a specific goal and kind of put it towards something that was tangible. So I'm excited to see what happens. But
yeah, that's great, man. I wish you luck.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm just thinking about it's funny. So Paul always does this question when we interview like triathletes. He'll ask like what your post game favorite like post race meal is, or if you have like a post race snack that you go to. So I'm interested to hear if you have one.
I do, and it's always donuts, man.
Nice.
It's always donuts.
Nice.
I have such a sweet tooth, man. I love the ice creams, the sour candies, the donuts. So that is my go-to, definitely after a race.
Nice.
Good question. That's a good question that he's got in his back pocket.
Yeah, no, it's great. And people always have like very specific, like almost everyone has like one thing that no one's like, oh, no, they're like, yes, this, I need it.
Yes.
So it's
this exact thing.
Yeah, I went to a race with him in Maryland, and his like right after drove him and got a McFlurry. He's like, dude, we need a McFlurry, like we need it ASAP. And,
until they tell you the machine is broken.
yeah, exactly. I'm sure we would have found McFlurries at all costs. But it's funny because he's like, I never have McFlurries any other time of the year, but post race, like my body craves it. So I'm excited. The place that I'm going, they're doing like lobster rolls after, and I think I'm also just gonna what I'm doing mentally to make sure that I have like something I'm going for is I'm gonna set up a brunch reservation for like a certain time, so that I'm like, all right, gotta make the brunch on time. I gotta get going.
True. I gotta make it to the finish line. I got a date at this pub, so I gotta get there.
Gotta get going. So
I don't want to break bad news to you, but at least for me, maybe not in your case, but I get this thing, I call it tempo tummy, where I exert so much, and this happens after really hard sessions or long run or races, like I'd rather just sit in the fetal position, and I couldn't even think of consuming a food. You know, so that's how I get sometimes, not all the time. But there are some races and workouts where I can't consume a single calorie for hours.
You need water and like hydration. That makes sense.
Exactly right.
That's probably actually a good rule of thumb that if you're truly exerting yourself, that's the other thing that everybody's saying. They're like, I mean, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna be bad. It's like regardless of how you. And I've tried to put myself in, some pretty pain. There's such a fine line. I'm interested to hear how you toe that line of exerting yourself, but then you don't want to get hurt to where you can't go train in 2 days when you have another big workout. How do you sustain? How do you sustain pushing yourself? Because I'll try to leave a little in the tank where I'm like the other day I did 12 miles and I was like, or this last weekend, I'm like, okay, if I can do I'm here 12, I feel good. I'm very tired, but I could do one more easy and just like get that 13 down. And then I'm like, no, save a little so you can, but yeah, I've definitely had the opposite happen where I ran like 10 miles super hard. And then I was out of commission for like 3 weeks because I banged up my knee, just pushing way too hard. So how do you find that? Probably just years of doing it, but
that's such a tough question, Bradley. Like that towing the line, and I'm probably the worst person to answer this question, but I'm going to answer it truthfully, and don't take advice from me. Anybody who's listening to this, please don't. When it comes to this, I mean, I've been injured. I've stress fractured each tibia, broke my heel, broke my back in 2 places. I've broken everything because of overtraining.
Right.
So I clearly fail at towing that line. But when it comes to, again, nobody listen to me. When it comes to races, this is terrible. I'm willing to die. I'm willing to go to the tank. I'm willing to go to the well. I'm willing to do whatever in a race atmosphere. I'm willing to do whatever it takes that is legal. I will go deeper than the well. I will go past the point of exhaustion. If my body fails, it fails. And that's how I race. That's always been how I've raced. And that's the whole racer mindset is I'm willing to, I toe the line and I'm willing to die. In training, I'm also kind of nuts, but
I'm also willing to die.
Yeah. I don't get quite to the point where it's like, okay, I'm within 2% of death. Not so much in training, in racing, yes, but like in training, you can actually do some serious damage where you actually need to dial it back for the goodness sake of your tomorrow's training session, Thursday's training session, Saturdays, like, and I've grown better as an athlete with that, because I used to always be, all right, high tempo Tuesday, track session Wednesday, just speed workout Thursday. I was just bang, 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 bang. And then it was boom. I ended up in a boot for 6 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, whatever. So I've grown better with it. But in training, my coach is so good because he knows my history. He knows like how sensitive I am to the mileage. Yeah. So it's very, it's communication with coach and athlete. And he's so good about like reeling in the reins, because he knows if he says, all right, I want you to do 5-minute pace until I say stop. Like if I got to be running all jacked up with messing up my ankles and my knees, I'll do it. But he'll be there to say, you got to just pull the plug, man. Like, even though deep down, I don't have an ounce of quit in me. So, and he knows that. So fortunately, he bears this responsibility of reeling me in and keeping me healthy.
Yeah, you can't be willing to die every single day. It's that's awesome though, but it's definitely that's definitely, you know, a large component of what got you here, right? Putting in those just absolutely phenomenal efforts that a lot of people aren't willing to endure. A lot of people get to half of that and be like, whew, I'm cooked for the day, like count me out after a couple, you know, a few miles in. And actually, to Paul's credit, Paul Zigowitz credit, he was like one of the first people that told me, because I was just consistently running like 2 miles, 3 miles, a mile after a workout, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, tomorrow, just go do 7. And I was like, 7 miles? Like, I've never done 7 miles. I can't do 7 miles. Like, that's double what I've ever done. That's insane. And then he's like, go do 7 miles. Like, just do it. And I got to the end of it, and I'm like, I did 7 miles. This is insane. This is absolutely. And then he's like, that's just the opening of like, just to show you, to your point of at the very beginning, untapped potential. It's like, dude, you always could have done that, you know? So then that was like one of the first unlocks for me as far as like physically. And then it's like, okay, then if I can do 7, I could probably do 8. Like you get to 8, you're like, maybe 10. Let's try 10.
I know. It's cheeky. It's a cheeky slope though. You know, it's like, it's like, well, where is my limit? And then, but like, that's what's so attractive about endurance sport is like, okay, we all have a limit, but where's my limit? And like, how far are we willing to go to test that limit? Like, oh man, I'm so attracted to the fact, like, the drive to get to that breaking point, not injury breaking point, like maximum exertion breaking point. And that's just like a crazy mindset, but that's such an attractive thing to me about endurance sport.
Definitely. Have you I talked about this with, I can't remember who the guest was. It was a long time ago, but I talked to him about, you know, David Goggins, I'm sure.
Yes, of course. That man's nuts. I love him.
So I was listening when I first got into running, maybe like a year and a half ago, was listening to his audio book. And I mean, I hurt myself by basically just constantly listening to that, being like, you got more? Are you kidding me? Like, you
Yeah.
think this is
Yeah.
hard?
Yeah.
And I'm just
You
like
don't know
listening,
hard.
like, yeah, I can keep going. And then yeah, so there's definitely that line, because mentally I always feel like and it seems like with a lot of endurance athletes, or just athletes in general, um, mentally the fortitude is there, where they're like, I can keep going for whatever. But sometimes it's like listening to your body. And so I've through the David Goggins method have learnend where my breaking point was, for sure. I
Yeah.
definitely dove in too deep to start by listening to
Yeah.
him. He's like doing these
Yeah.
150-mile like ruck runs with like 50 pounds on his back. I'm like, I don't have anything on my back. I should keep going. Like,
Yeah. No, that's good trial by fire, right? But I mean,
yeah,
that man was racing on like broken feet, where like it's like you need to like you need to know when it's like unhealthy. And then
yeah,
I mean, we're all a little unhealthy to an extent, but it's like, yeah,
dude.
you got two broken feet.
Yeah, I mean, those stories are absolutely crazy.
Right.
But yeah, well, let me see. I mean, I think we touched on a lot of good stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I loved that, again, not to bring up another kind of like big figure like that, but when you were talking about the no excuses, no one cares about, you were late, or you didn't get enough sleep, or you didn't get to have
Right.
your meal. It also made me think of this video that Jocko Willink does. That's like, um,
I know, Jocko.
yeah. So he'd be like, you know, it's freezing cold out this morning, and he's like, good, do it anyways. And he's like, my girlfriend, she just broke up with me, so I don't think I
Right.
can train. And he's like, good, even better, go do it, like, do it anyways. And he just
It's
lists
so
all these
true.
things, and he's like, good. It's like, really, it's funny. It's like all these things that a lot of people would take as negatives and use as like a crutch to say, well, I
Right.
can't do it because of this. And he's like, no, good, do it even though that happened.
Right. Well, that actually just triggered something in my head, and it's I love Christmas Day, and well, now I have a new appreciation for Christmas Day because it's the birth of my Savior. But no, that's unrelated to why I do love Christmas Day. That's the reason for the day, and that's the love of the day. But because Christmas Day is the day that I am going to outwork everyone else. That's one day on the calendar that I believe, or I tell myself, my competition is not working. So I'm going to do 3 sessions on Christmas, because that day I'm going to capitalize on a day that people make this excuse to themselves that, oh, because this day is on a calendar, oh, it's Valentine's Day, so
Yeah.
I got to do this. Or it's like, please, everybody else,
Right.
I'm telling you, please go for it. Take that day. Only do one session because you have X, Y, or Z. Fill an excuse here, please, because that day, or whatever day, birthday, whatever day, I'm working. I treat every day as a work day. Every day is a work day. If you got a dream as big as I have, every day is a work day, and every day is a step closer or a step back. You can't stay the same. And if you're continually moving forward, then you're going to get there. And even injuries that I've had, that people would say, oh, you took so many steps backwards. Fair. Mentally, it moved me forward uncountable steps, because the injuries suffered, I could do another session just on mental growth that I've made alone. Like injuries, you can still train through injuries. That's how I got to triathlon, through swimming and biking. But no, you can also train mentally. Like, there's so much character that you can build when you're in a boot, when you're in a back brace for 23 hours a day for 13 months, when you're immobile in your bed, you can still train. I was still training like an Olympic athlete in a back brace when I couldn't move. I was still training. It didn't look like people would say. It wouldn't look like ordinary training.
That's amazing. I love
It's
the
crazy.
I love that, the mental side, and also love uh, the Christmas day at work, everyone, because even on, something that's been appealing to me, and this wasn't even just with sports, but when I was doing things when I was younger, and it was like you realize you were in either a small group or sometimes the only one doing a certain thing. Like say you get up early for a run and you're out, or you're at a track that usually has 2 dozen people at it, and you look around, you're the only one, and it's pitch black out. You're like, okay, like I'm doing something right. Or
Right.
you're out on a run, you usually see similar faces, and then you realize it's like, yeah, no one's out here at this time doing this, or no one's out here
Right.
today because it's, a holiday or whatever it is. Um, those moments feel pretty good and like validating, just that you do have
Of
to
course.
sometimes have those, I wouldn't say lonely. It's like the solitude of just being with your own thoughts, and like just you have to go hammer yourself. Because the other thing that I've noticed is when you are going for, and you're doing much bigger athletic goals than I certainly am, but just when you're going after any goals, athletic, professional, personal, um, it can be somewhat lonely in that I used to try to recruit other people, and you're just, a lot of times you just have to let them, like you have to find your people through doing it rather than trying to
Right.
recruit people that might not be interested, because you're gonna
Right.
get let down. Like, no, come on, you don't want to run. And
Right.
it's like, dude, it's 5 o'clock. Like, shut up, you know?
Right.
Um,
It's true. It's so true. It's just like you can't force passion. It's kind of like an innate thing. You can't like everybody has drive towards something, but
right,
as soon as you ask someone to take themselves out of their ordinary daily normal routine, you're impeding them, you're
mm,
bothering them, and so you
right,
can't force any of that. You might get them out the door once, twice, whatever, but you
yeah,
can't force that upon them, and it's just
definitely right.
I think there's just like a complacency thing in this world today, that it's just like people become very complacent with where they're at,
It's,
and
yeah, comfort.
I'm not down. Yeah, it's just like this comfort level, and it's just I don't want to fall into that. I don't want to fall victim to that, and the first step towards that is making excuses for yourself, and that's why I really try, and that's making excuses for yourself, but also talking down about yourself.
Mhm.
Like Bradley, my swim is by no means my strongest discipline, but I'm not going to come on here and say, oh, I'm a weak swimmer,
Right.
where from a coach's standpoint, they're going to call me or define me or put me in the box of a weak swimmer. But as soon as I start saying to myself, I'm a weak swimmer, or the swim is my
Right.
weakness, then I'm going to stop believing that. And then it turns into an excuse and why I lost my race. And then it's just, that's that slippery slope. And
Mhm.
I don't want to buy into that. And that's so common today. It's like, oh, I went on 6 job interviews and I got rejected by all 6. And it's just like, I guess maybe just work ain't cut out for me. It's just like,
No, it's like, no,
uh,
you should probably do 20 job interviews.
I
Go
know
until
it's
it's
just
so
like,
true.
but
I've actually
I don't know.
had
It's
the exact same conversation. I mean, years back, but like, yeah, I mean, all it takes is one. But it's funny you're talking about job interviews, because yeah, my friends and I have had this conversation.
yeah,
It's like, guy I lived with, me and him both were sending out like 40 applications a day until we found a job, and then we hear
yeah.
other people complaining like, well, I reached out to the lady, she didn't get back to me. So it's like, you reached out to
Yeah,
one woman. Like,
I know.
there's
I know.
there's other
My pop.
opportunities.
There's two quotes that my pops that he tells me. He said, if you want something bad enough, you'll go get it. And so if you contacted one lady, unless she's the only person that works at that office,
Yeah,
there's always more people you can. And if you want it bad enough, you can go get it.
right.
And if you're curious about the second one, it's nothing worthwhile is easy. So if you want to win a race, it's going to hurt. If you want to complete your half marathon, Bradley, it's going to
Yeah,
hurt. If like you can put these things in any instance at all, but
right.
it's true. And they you call them cliche, but it's two things that I remind myself daily, because I'm attacking this as a professional athlete from a training standpoint and also from a business standpoint, because I am creating my own brand as an athlete and a sponsored athlete. And so if you want something bad enough, if you want to work with somebody so bad enough, call them, email them, send them your athletic portfolio. It's just like,
do something.
That's something that I like.
Yeah, doing something personalized is huge too. Like when I would do outreach, or I would talk to people about outreach, it's like, yeah, if you send them a boilerplate thing that you sent to everybody, of course they're gonna probably look away. But if you're intentional, you find out, what's that woman's job, what does she like to do, what does she blah blah blah, and you just say, you get a little background on them, it goes a long way.
Right.
But you mentioned the sponsorship. I am a little interested, and then I'll let you go. I know I've been on for a while, but I was just having a ton of fun.
Yeah, me too, brother. Me too.
You mentioned the sponsorship and the business side of things a little. I saw that at least one of the sponsorships you have is the Rise Wealth Management. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's actually my most recent sponsor that joined my team.
Okay. So I'm interested to hear about that and just sponsorships in general, kind of the dynamic of your working relationship with them.
Yeah, of course. So without going into too much detail, a lot of that stuff is personal between like federation and athlete. But yeah, so basically I have a platform as an athlete, and I represent the USA kit. So we're all given the US kit, and we have these spots on our jersey. It's like NASCAR, we all have these areas to put corporate logos, companies, potential sponsors, bike sponsors, whatever, really anything, hydration sponsors. You can do all of that, anything. And the most recent one, Rise Private Wealth Management, they reached out, they wanted to jump on board. And you're saying, how could a wealth management firm, how could a triathlete trying to make the Olympics benefit from a wealth management firm? And it's not that I use their product or service. I actually do use their service, but I do now. But it might not seem related. However, getting to the Olympics takes an army. I don't stand on top of the podium alone. It takes a whole lot of money. I got a lot of expenses. I travel all around the world. I got to do all the stuff. So they supply me financially, and I give back to them in their community events. So they toss me a bunch of dates, and I pick a couple of these dates. And for example, we did a children's triathlon, and I was able to start the race and rock them through some stretches. There's going to be a guest speaking, keynote speaker opportunity down at the Encore Casino in Boston, where they asked if I could come out to be the keynote speaker for there. So it goes both ways, but that's just with Rise most recently, where they want to jump on, they want to support me financially, and I want to give back to them, give them the exposure, the marketing. I want to put them on my kit. I want to wear them. When I break the tape at a finish line, I want people to know that I am not in this alone. Like I get support. This is one of my sponsors. So basically I'm not a businessman, but I'm trying to make triathlon very marketable. I'm trying to make athletes, I'm trying to make it possible for potential athletes with all the crazy expenses. Bikes alone are crazy expensive, repairs and flying and hotels and all that stuff. So this makes it possible and allows for me to do what I do on a daily basis.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like this generation, the triathlon scene is definitely getting bigger and bigger as the years go on. It's obviously for as opportunities like this come up. Encore though is right down the street from me. Actually, I'm in East Boston, so if you're in the city and have time, we'll have to grab a coffee or get some lunch or something.
But it should be cool. I like doing things like that. Awesome. I like giving back to community. I like working with kids. I like doing a lot of that stuff, and I meet some incredible people and I hear some incredible stories. And it's nice to hear sometimes when someone comes up to me and they say, hey, your story touched me, or your story helped me, or you have a cool story. And so it's nice that I get opportunities like that with the platform that God blessed me with.
Absolutely. I was gonna say you definitely have an engaging story, and I think you'll crush that speech for sure. Because it's been
Thank you.
awesome just getting to talk to you about your background, and I guess that might be a good place to wrap it up on the
All right.
story note, because it is the Story to Tell podcast. So I got to take the cue and kind of bring it full circle.
Sounds great. Yeah, I love
But
it.
yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm super excited to get to share this with everyone. Great getting to talk to you, getting to meet you, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch going forward.
That sounds great. Hey, good luck with that half, man. Honestly,
Thank you.
just know that you always have more left. Like
Absolutely. I'm
that's
writing
just
that down.
you always, yeah, that's just something like your brain's gonna lie to you and say that you're exhausted. Just like truly believe deep down, don't just read it on a piece of paper. Like truly know you have more left.
Right.
So that's all I got for you. Of
Absolutely. That's great advice. Thank you, man.
course.
Well, I will talk to you soon. Have a good rest of the night.
All right. Thanks, brother. Thanks again for your time. And it was a great interview.